Part 94. You are a bastard, rascal, villain. But I intend to be with you for the rest of my life. Returning to the mansion, getting out of the car, when Bai Xuelan looked up, he saw Xuan Huaifeng wearing a suit for going out, slowly coming out of the gate. Bai Xuelan went up to him and asked, "Where are you going?" Xuan Huaifeng's heart skipped a beat. Last night, Bai Xuelan asked about the gold watch, which caused Xuan Huaifeng to be restless all morning. After thinking about it, he still had to look for it at Nian's house. Must be able to find it back. After completing the 2 documents that Bai Xuelan urgently needed, and sending someone to the Prime Minister's office, Xuan Huaifeng wanted to take advantage of Bai Xuelan's return and personally go to Nian's house. Unexpectedly, as soon as he went out, he bumped into Bai Xuelan, who came back. It can be seen that people really can't do anything wrong. Seeing Bai Xuelan asking Xuan Huaifeng, both wanted to confess, but also lacked the courage to confess. It's not that he was afraid of Bai Xuelan scolding him, but that he lost Bai Xuelan's gift. I don't know how sad Bai Xuelan is, and maybe he is suspicious, complaining about himself, saying that Xuan Huaifeng doesn't take his thoughts seriously. As long as Xuan Huaifeng thought that the two would return to the previous situation lukewarm, he couldn't help but escape. To Bai Xuelan's question, he just said, "Walk around." Bai Xuelan asked, "Which neighborhood should you go to?" Xuan Huaifeng is not good at lying, and his signs are almost exposed, and he said, "The neighborhood is the neighborhood. But there are a few small streets and alleys around here, what else is there?" Bai Xuelan tutted. Shaking his head twice, he teased him and said, Adjutant Xuan. You really don't lie." Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "How long have I been out? Yet you kept your eyes on it so closely, sent the documents to the Prime Minister, and made a special trip to wait for the door. Could it be that I can carry you outside for wild food during the daytime?" Xuan Huaifeng, immediately embarrassed, he denied. "I didn't wait for anyone's door. What kind of wild food? Your words are too vulgar." Bai Xuelan said, "Okay, I'm vulgar, and you are noble. We two complement each other. What are you doing at this gate? Let's go in. I'm hungry." Involuntarily took him into the mansion. Bai Xuelan was hungry, but when he returned to the house, he did not ask the servant to deliver food. Instead, he asked Xuan Huaifeng to sit on the reclining chair first, then bent down and took off the leather shoes on Xuan Huaifeng's feet. Xuan Huaifeng's ankle bruises were not completely healed, so he couldn't help taking a deep breath. Bai Xuelan said, "Looking at the pain you suffered yesterday, I didn't want to scold you. Look. How can you wear shoes with injured feet? It's your fault for doing such a stupid thing. It hurts when you take it off, and when you put it on, it doesn't hurt anymore. I really should beat you." He carefully took off the white socks on Xuan Huaifeng's feet. Xuan Huaifeng smiled bitterly and said, "You said you didn't want to scold, now not only scolds, but also beats." Before he finished speaking, Bai Xuelan covered his lips and kissed him. Bai Xuelan whispered and laughed in an irritating voice, "You will follow me for the rest of your life. Now that you have it, you can scold and beat you." Xuan Huaifeng didn't expect him to say such words. Startled for a while, he narrowed his eyes and said, "Say it again." Bai Xuelan stopped talking, pursed his lips into a beautiful arc, and didn't know what he was enjoying. He went to get the medicated oil and sat down, took Xuan Huaifeng's white foot in his arms and rubbed it skillfully. Xuan Huaifeng felt a slight pain in his ankle, and he frowned and snorted softly. With the same voice, Bai Xuelan raised his eyelids and stared straight at him for a while. Those eyes full of strength were deep and hot. Xuan Huaifeng immediately did not dare to make any more sound, gritted his white teeth, and patiently endured silently. Then Bai Xuelan lowered his head again, and continued to knead as if he was doing some meticulous work. He did this really well. Massage is active, just right and powerful. Slowly. The pain was very noticeable, and it brought a little indescribable comfort, as if the bad things stagnating in the ankle were all squeezed away by Bai Xuelan's magical fingers. Xuan Huaifeng was relieved, with half of his upper body resting on the armrest, watching the sunlight slanting in from the window and falling on the man's handsome face. Unconsciously looked trance. He never knew that a man rubbing another man's feet could actually be a heartwarming painting. When I came back to my senses, I suddenly felt embarrassed for no reason. Xuan Huaifeng coughed lightly, looked for a topic and asked, "What do you think about the documents I asked someone to send over?" Bai Xuelan poured a few more drops of medicated oil into his palms, rubbed his hands together, and continued to look good. He rubbed his lover's ankle and bowed his head in response. "Very good." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What opinion does the premier have?" Bai Xuelan said, "He praised you for your meticulous writing, and said he would give you a raise." Xuan Huaifeng said, "I don't need to raise my salary. It was originally my job. I'll do it if I don't. I'll wait for my feet to get better in 2 days. As for the shortage of manpower, I made a few calls in the morning. And many of my friends were very enthusiastic and said they wanted to do something real for the country. I think this is also a good thing for society, and we should organize a group of volunteers." "You probably won't object?" Bai Xuelan said, "I've assigned this matter to you, you can handle it. You don't have to ask me about everything." Xuan Huaifeng hummed, and after a while, he asked curiously, "The Prime Minister called you over early in the morning, what's the matter?" Bai Xuelan said lightly, "The 6 party talks are about to be held, and the guests have gathered in the capital. The Prime Minister asked me to entertain a few guests from other places." Xuan Huaifeng said, "Very well, at this time. Everyone should fight for the country. You entertain people, but don't play with your weird temper." Bai Xuelan raised his eyes and glanced at him with a half-smile. Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What are you doing? When you're angry, do I say you have a bad temper?" "Don't be angry. If we didn't know each other, I wouldn't tell you such an offending truth." Bai Xuelan sighed. Xuan Huaifeng asked, "Why are you sighing again?" "Well, if you don't like what I said, I'll shut up in the future." Bai Xuelan said, "Why, you're thinking about me like this?" "I'm very happy." "I sighed because I'm hungry." Xuan Huaifeng suddenly stunned and blurted out, "This daytime." He stopped abruptly. He turned red from the base of his ears to his chin, and turned his head towards the window in embarrassment, struggling to retract his feet. Of course, Bai Xuelan refused to let it go. He held on to the bare feet of the white sheep and asked with a smile, "During the daytime, no one is allowed to be hungry." "What kind of reasoning is this?" "Oh, I know, there are many kinds of hunger. There is stomach hunger, spiritual hunger, and husband and wife hunger, but which kind of hunger is absolutely impossible in the daytime? This chief is ignorant." "Adjutant Xuan, you preach to me? Or tell me, just now I said I was hungry, where did I go?" Xuan Huaifeng was so ashamed that he was caught by the wicked bully and couldn't escape. Bai Xuelan said decisively, "No." Xuan Huaifeng asked helplessly, "Then what do you want? Is it possible that you will send me to the court for trial?" "Yes, but there is no need to send it to the court, and I, the innocent who you have wronged, will enforce justice on you." Xuan Huaifeng had a sullen face, but after listening to him pretending to say, he couldn't help laughing, "Are you still innocent? I really convinced you." "Bai Xuelan, don't make a fuss. You're hungry. Ask the kitchen to bring food, old man. Let's be honest. Let go of my feet, it hurts to scratch." Seeing that his feet hurt, Bai Xuelan had no choice but to let go, attached himself to his body, and buried himself in his white neck as if to vent, and hummed, "You are getting better and better. I'm hungry. And that place is even more hungry. Tell me, how many days have we laid on a bed?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "Didn't we still lay in bed last night?" Bai Xuelan's teeth tickled and sharpened. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't bear this kind of coquettishness, so he tilted his neck back deeply, laughing and panting, but helpless. He said intermittently, "Okay, okay. I admit my mistake. Don't bite, it's so itchy." Bai Xuelan paused for a moment and made a conditional statement, "I can't admit my mistake, but I have to make amends." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What compensation? Are you pretending to be stupid? I think you're still pretending?" He lowered his head to bite again. Xuan Huaifeng hurriedly shouted, "Okay, okay, I got it." Bai Xuelan asked, "Do you really know? Don't be rude, prevaricate, or perfunctory this time." He was tall and deliberately put his weight on Xuan Huaifeng on his body. Xuan Huaifeng was so pressed that he couldn't move. He gasped and surrendered, "I see, but we always have to have lunch. Look at this hour." Bai Xuelan immediately wiped off the bully's appearance, revealing a very serious expression. With a handsome smile, he said, "I know, you have to eat lunch. I can't bear to let you go hungry. If you get hungry, I should regret it. I will ask again. After lunch. I will feed it sincerely and sincerely. I'm full, I'll never go back." Bai Xuelan shook his head, "No, this is just a perfunctory tone. I will answer more formally than the official document. Otherwise, I will not get up. I think 7 or 8-year-old children will also use it." Bai Xuelan said, "You don't care how old I am, the trick only depends on whether it is useful. Not whether it is ugly or not. To deal with people like you who are always lazy, you must use sloppy tricks. Come on, after lunch. You can sincerely feed me a good meal." Xuan Huaifeng sighed and said, "Okay." Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "That's enough." He jumped up from the reclining chair and immediately rang the bell, telling to bring the meal quickly. Xuan Huaifeng slowly put his feet down on the reclining chair and wanted to put on his shoes. Bai Xuelan said, "Don't move. Wait for me." He came over and carried him to the chair beside the small round table and put it down. After a while, the servant brought the food over. The Sichuan chef invited in the mansion is still there. Today, I happened to make the spicy shrimp and crab again. It was served on the table at one end, and the lid of the pot was lifted. Xuan Huaifeng immediately sneezed twice and woke up his nose with a handkerchief. The appetite was immediately swayed by the extremely intense aroma. Bai Xuelan liked it even more. When he went out early in the morning, his stomach was screaming. He packed a large bowl of white rice, scooped hot and spicy oil on the rice, and added a few large pieces of stewed pork belly. The meal was served with chopsticks. Mixed, patted a few mouthfuls before patting the stomach first. Others are handsome, and such rude eating actions are made by him. But they are refreshing and comfortable, full of arrogance and good-looking. Xuan Huaifeng looked at him and couldn't help but smile. Bai Xuelan noticed that he was smiling, looked up and asked, "Why don't you eat?" "I'm sorry, I'm really hungry, so I ate it myself." Xuan Huaifeng took a spicy prawn from the hot pot into a bowl, peeled it leisurely, and said, "You can see that you are a northern man when you eat." Bai Xuelan paid a visit to him and said, "I am not only at the dinner table, but also in other places. I will let you know later. Don't open it," and said seriously, "Don't talk nonsense when eating, be careful of stomach pain later." A bit of shame floated silently in the bottom of my heart. It is true that those who are close to bamboo are red, and those who are close to ink are black. After hanging out with Bai Xuelan for a long time, he actually started a little enjoying the crazy talk of Bai Xuelan who couldn't grow ivory in their mouths. Bai Xuelan asked, "Why do you only eat shrimp? Don't eat crabs?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "I want to eat it. But this hard thing is not easy to handle." Bai Xuelan smiled at him and took a few from the pot. A big crab, tick it on a plate. It is said that tall people are not agile. But Bai Xuelan is by no means like this. Every muscle in his body is flexible and powerful. When facing the crab that has a headache, he turns his fingers quickly, like cooking a steak, and tickling a spoon full of crabs in a while. For the meat, I picked a little hot and spicy sauce on top and handed it to Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng said, "Thank you." When he took it over, he felt very sweet, very sweet. Put the spoon in the bowl, pick it up bit by bit with the chopsticks, chew it cherishly, and taste the deliciousness of the crab meat. Bai Xuelan asked, "Is it delicious?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "It's delicious. I've never eaten something so delicious." Bai Xuelan said, "Forgive your lack of knowledge. The crabs in July and August are not enough. Just a mention. After October, when the crabs get fat, I will ask someone to bring over the crabs from Yangcheng Lake, with a spoonful of crab roe, dipped in vinegar and eaten. It will be fragrant and fresh." Xuan Huaifeng's dark eyes gave him a deep look, and after a while, he asked Bai Xuelan, "Do you remember what we discussed about eating this before?" Bai Xuelan said, "Of course I remember, and every word I remember. But I didn't expect it, and you remember too. Tell me, what did I tell you at the time?" Xuan Huaifeng wondered, "What does this mean? Are you investigating me?" Bai Xuelan said, "It's just to see and look at you, how much you value me." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "If I don't remember what you said, it means I don't value you. Then you're going to get mad at me." Bai Xuelan said, "I will never get angry. Even if you don't remember a word, at most it can only mean that you didn't value me at that time. So you didn't take what I said to heart." He paused, then suddenly bent again, bent his lips, looked at Xuan Huaifeng with warm eyes, and said in a low voice, "However, I guess you will remember some of it. I guess you already had me in your heart at that time." Xuan Huaifeng was startled. In the silent place, the feeling of heartbeat is hazy, and facing Bai Xuelan, he is as overwhelmed as a young boy in love. Bai Xuelan smiled and coaxed him, "Tell me, how much do you remember?" "You're right, I'll peel another spoonful of good crab meat and feed you. Plus 2 large shrimps. Come, this is the money." Picked half a spoon of crab meat, handed it over, flipped his wrist, and poured it into the Xuan Huaifeng bowl. Xuan Huaifeng said, "After receiving the money, it seems that it is impossible not to be investigated." Bai Xuelan said, "Of course." Xuan Huaifeng smiled lightly and said, "Okay." He slammed the fan lightly, thought for a moment, and said slowly, "That day, you said, you are this spicy shrimp and crab dish. The disadvantage is spicy, but the advantage is also spicy." Bai Xuelan nodded and said, "Yes." He is reassuring. Xuan Huaifeng continued to recall and said, "You also said that if you keep the original flavor, you may be disliked by people who like to eat light food. But if it is less spicy, it will not be fragrant, authentic, and will lose its essence." Nodding his head, he said, "That's right. That's what I said at the time." "What about the latter?" "One day." Bai Xuelan also said something to Xuan Huaifeng, "You have the courage to eat this dish, and you can tell the truth in front of me. In my heart, I can't say how happy I am." Xuan Huaifeng knew very well that what he wanted to hear was this sentence, but today, in such a situation, asking him to repeat it to Bai Xuelan in broad daylight, thinking about the hidden meaning in these words, was like asking him to be in the dark. Bai Xuelan automatically stripped naked in front of him and was blatantly shy. "How can you stand it?" Xuan Huaifeng's ears were hot, and he said stubbornly, the latter, I don't remember. Bai Xuelan loves and hates his tender-skinned shyness, patted the table unwillingly, and asked him. You also said that I was cheating. Who is cheating now? You took my deposit, but the goods you gave are not authentic. Xuan Huaifeng said. I'll peel back a spoonful of crab meat for you. Bai Xuelan said, No, is this a child's house? I don't accept it. Xuan Huaifeng said, Oh, now you're teaching children how to play in the house. When you were a child, you had more than me. He put a piece of crab in the bowl. Although his fingers are dexterous, he is not familiar with the business of peeling crabs. He lowered his head and fiddled with it carefully for a while before picking out a small spoonful of meat and handing it to Bai Xuelan. Bai Xuelan glanced at him and didn't move. Xuan Huaifeng said, Are you going to eat? If you don't, I'll eat it myself. He made a gesture to withdraw his hand. Bai Xuelan was like a tiger being robbed of food in his mouth. He immediately snatched the spoon from his hand and poured it into his mouth. While chewing hard, he stared at Xuan Huaifeng as if to express his dissatisfaction. But probably the half-spoonful of crab meat is too delicious and sweet. Chewing and chewing, the heroic face can't help but a suspicious smile. The smile can't be suppressed, it spreads quickly. And it turns into a clear pleasure-smiling face. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help but smile. The two looked at each other and smiled. Like a pair of children who were fighting and reconciled in an instant. Bai Xuelan said, Although you are hard-mouthed, I know you remember. Xuan Huaifeng said, You can guess what you want. The two continued to pick the spicy crabs slowly, picking them better. Involuntarily handed it to the other side. They all felt that this meal was very comfortable and interesting. Xuan Huaifeng asked, By the way, where did you hide that girl I brought back from outside the city? Bai Xuelan said, Who? I know. Is it that Xiao Peisai? Xuan Huaifeng laughed and said, Don't use other people's names for practice. Her name is Xiao Feiyan, not Xiao Peisai. What about the person? Bai Xuelan asked. What are you asking her for? Song Ren said that there was something wrong with the scent on her body. It is a very powerful incense, and it almost fascinated you. Xuan Huaifeng said. She's a little girl who can only sing songs, so how can I know what kind of incense is? It is estimated that it was arranged by Zhan Luzhao and the others, and it has nothing to do with her. Do you still want to torture her? You are poisonous enough with Huaiyan's hands. If you are also poisonous to a weak woman? Bai Xuelan, I will look down on you. Bai Xuelan said casually, It's not like chopping the little girl's fingers. Don't worry, people will be locked in the backyard. If you care about her so much, I will let her out and serve you as a little girl. Will it work? Xuan Huaifeng said, I don't need a girl. I just want to see if she's safe. As long as you don't waste her life, I'll thank you on her behalf. Bai Xuelan said, I won't talk to you about this, let's do business. Xuan Huaifeng asked, What business? As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Xuelan stood up, took a white towel to help him wipe his mouth and hands, and then throw the towel on the table and stretch out his hands together. Xuan Huaifeng suddenly left the chair with his buttocks. After a few breaths, the person has reached the soft mattress. Bai Xuelan took off his jacket, loosened his tie, kicked his shoes, and went to bed next to him, hot air spraying on his face. Xuan Huaifeng said, I just had dinner. Bai Xuelan said, I know, but I didn't say I'll do it now. At least I'll let you stop eating first. When I watch a performance, I usually go behind the scenes and behind a curtain. It's fun to put on airs. We are playing like this today? Xuan Huaifeng said, What kind of door curtains are put on airs? You get carried away and say witty things you don't understand. Bai Xuelan smiled and said, Baby, you haven't heard of it. Only hear his voice, but don't see him? He turned over, searched for a while in the cabinet beside the bed, and turned over with something he found. Xuan Huaifeng was taken aback when he saw the black cloth strip in his hand, and asked him, "What are you doing with this?" Bai Xuelan said softly, "My dear, close your glasses." Xuan Huaifeng knew that he wanted to. Don't do a good job. At other times, Xuan Huaifeng would never cooperate. However, this man is the one he intends to be with for the rest of his life. However, the man's smile was so gentle and charming that it dazzled him enough to be reckless. However, they have been arguing for so many days, and at this moment, they are going to be together again. Even if they pretend not to care, in fact, every part of their body is calling Bai Xuelan, Bai Xuelan, Bai Xuelan. So, Xuan Huaifeng closed his beautiful eyes honestly. Let the black cloth cover the eyes, and tie a knot on the back of the head, blocking the vision. The surroundings became black. Can't see anything, other senses are more sensitive. Bai Xuelan's fingertips unbuttoned his shirt and touched his collarbone lightly. Xuan Huaifeng took a deep breath. "Well," Bai Xuelan said softly, don't pant, don't pant. We can't sing this curtain." But he was panting himself, tempted by Xuan Huaifeng's suppressed breathing. He lowered his head, his tongue poking out over the soft skin. Xuan Huaifeng let out another low cry. It was itchy on his neck, like a snake wet with hot water, trembling and crawling on it. His heart skipped a beat, but there was no malice. From the neck down, crawled over the shoulders, leaving a curved trace of damp heat. Sucking his blood, sucking his soul. Xuan Huaifeng was blindfolded. His cheeks and chin were written in beautiful arcs under the light, and he groaned tremblingly, "No, don't." Bai Xuelan's voice was even softer, but also trembled slightly. "Don't pant, baby. Don't pant. Are you trying to make me hold back?" Xuan Huaifeng stopped breathing obediently. Grinning his white teeth, he exerted himself, and his whole body trembled even more. Bai Xuelan spoke again, like a mosquito digging into his ear, scratching his heart and biting. "Don't tremble, you tremble again. I can't bear it anymore." Biting the red and standing flower bones on his chest, he tore the tender tips bud. Xuan Huaifeng shook his head violently. Sweat seeped out from his hair. "Who told you to endure? Who wants you to sing what curtains and put on some air? After putting up with these days, every day is an empty room, an empty bed, you still drink with those women. Listen to them sing ditty songs, and smile at them. You bastard, rogue." His crotch was suddenly covered by the man's palm, and he was rubbing it enthusiastically. Even more forcefully than rubbing his ankle just now, until it penetrated under the flesh. Xuan Huaifeng let out a whimper from his throat. "Can't see anything. Only feel. Only feeling." The feeling of being stroked, touched, and loved by Bai Xuelan. Xuan Huaifeng was terrified of the darkness, but he loved it deeply. The joy in his bones made him tremble. As if the wind chimes were blown mercilessly by the wind, almost falling apart. He obviously has free hands, and he can remove the black cloth that covers his eyes. But he had forgotten that he could do it. Just being stroked, touched, and kissed by Bai Xuelan, the shameful place between his legs became hot and scalded. Xuan Huaifeng whimpered for no reason, stretched out his hand in the darkness, found the man's position with his intuition, and hugged him like a straw for his own life. So emotional, fast. So. "I can't wait," Xuan Huaifeng shouted in a chaotic low voice. "Bai Xuelan." Bai Xuelan responded, "Xuan Huaifeng." Xuan Huaifeng gasped and said, "You are a bastard." Bai Xuelan said, "Yes. I'm a bastard." Xuan Huaifeng gritted his teeth and said, "You're a rascal." Bai Xuelan said, Yes, I'm a rascal." Xuan Huaifeng still gritted his teeth and said, You're a villain." Bai Xuelan said, Yes, yes, I am a villain. Xuan Huaifeng was speechless. Put your head on the man's strong shoulders and press it hard, as if to transmit the uncontrollable trembling of the body to the man. He never knew that, without seeing his eyes, the feeling could become so intense. It's just not like myself. I don't know why, but I have to endure so hard. Let this person play with every part of his body, set fire on it recklessly, and burn every inch with joy and pain. When he almost fainted in this happy pain, Bai Xuelan held his knee and spread his legs apart. Xuan Huaifeng hugged his neck and refused to let go, and asked intermittently, You still, are you bringing those women home? There were 2 faint wet marks on the black cloth that covered his eyes. Bai Xuelan felt a pain in his heart, and said softly, No. Never again. He slowly buried his own in it. Xuan Huaifeng let out a thin scream. His body was suddenly filled with Bai Xuelan. His internal organs were oppressed by foreign objects, and he almost reached the peak of such pain. The feeling is concentrated in the place occupied by Bai Xuelan. At this moment, he didn't know that it was Bai Xuelan who ate him, or myself. Ate Bai Xuelan. Bai Xuelan kissed him and moved frequently, saying, Huaifeng, you are so hot. You are also very hot. Bai Xuelan, you are also very hot. Like the body, the brain has melted. It is the ice of March that has turned into a pool of spring water, enough to drown every fool who falls in love. Perhaps we will drown each other in the end. Maybe I ate you, and you ate me. Even the belt bone, not a bit left. That's the conclusion. Bai Xuelan twitched lightly and heavy in his body. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't see a trace of light, it was full of feelings. Since there is no light, there is no need to be shy. He was bold and groaned softly. With the courage, he hugged Bai Xuelan and didn't let go. Firmly, hold tight. Make your body fit a little tighter. Get there, go a little deeper. The air is full of the unique smell of Bai Xuelan, rough and charming. On the skin, there are all the imprints and touches of Bai Xuelan. Owned by this man, I can be so happy. Bai Xuelan, Bai Xuelan. Xuan Huaifeng endured the physical whipping and shouted in confusion in the bottom of his heart. As if he could hear his inner call, Bai Xuelan bit his rosy lips, domineering, holding his hips with one hand and his waist with the other, pushing him slowly and heavily. When something dripped onto his body, Xuan Huaifeng felt his skin hot. The hot sweat that slid from the man's skin was dripping on his body. It's just a little sweat, how can there be such a big power? How can it feel so? A drop. Silent, another drop. Every drop made Xuan Huaifeng's whole body scalded tightly, and the part where the 2 were connected shrank deeply, causing even Bai Xuelan to gasp and muffled, You. What a terrifying little thing. It turned out that he was blindfolded, and even Bai Xuelan's voice was so sexy that it made one's heart palpitate. Xuan Huaifeng's mind exploded. Unable to break into an army, it blew thousands of miles. Bai Xuelan's enthusiasm and physical strength are still the same as before. It didn't take long for him to come out. And then he went in mentally, holding it again and again, until Xuan Huaifeng begged for mercy, Slow down, slow down. Bai Xuelan licked his chest, replied sweetly, Okay. I'll slow down a little. After a while, it was too fast. The unbearable rhythm and the heat of intense friction made Xuan Huaifeng fiery and confused. He frowned and groaned, unable to say even the intermittent, slow down. The waist was sore and painful, but Bai Xuelan's desire seemed to never end. Xuan Huaifeng occasionally opened his eyes and saw the swaying ornate ceiling. Only then did he dimly realize that the black cloth covering his eyes had been untied at some point. The tide is turbulent and difficult to contain. He was beaten with love and soreness, wondering if he should fight the intemperance of the man who was pressing on him. Perhaps resistance is futile. Before he could catch his breath, the next one started again. Bai Xuelan did it many times on the bed, and carried Xuan Huaifeng with soft hands and feet to the bathroom. The mist of the hot water rose up. He seemed to have endured it for a long time, and couldn't help but press his beloved shy lover against the wall again, eagerly thrusting. Probably out of control. But he was too hungry, too hungry. These days of the Cold War not only broke his food, but also took away his soul. Half of his soul was taken away by Xuan Huaifeng. This baby has the soul of Bai Xuelan. Forcing him, he could only ask him over and over again, in a deep, deep place, ruthlessly. Again, repeat. After coming out of the bathroom, Xuan Huaifeng's toes were still twitching. Pleasure hovers in the body. In the field of vision, Bai Xuelan's face is blurred, but even if it is blurred, it is still terribly charming. Bai Xuelan stroked his cheek and called him intimately, Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng moved his eyelids, his voice was so weak that he could hardly hear it, and asked in a trance. "Are you still drinking with those women?" Bai Xuelan said, "Never again." Xuan Huaifeng closed his eyes, leaned against his arm, and fell asleep.